Hello, Andy.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, yeah.
Excellent. Well, welcome aboard. You're Canada's Boxing Channel's first official guest. Everybody, this is Andy from Andy's Cavern over in Scotland. I'll be putting a link to Andy's Cavern in the description of this video. So, this is the second time that Andy, you and I have collaborated. The first
Yeah.
time I appeared as a guest on your channel, and I think people seem to like the camaraderie we had, the way that we were able to cover off things. If you're new to this channel or you're new to Andy's channel, we're just two boxing fans. We're separated by an ocean and a continent, but we both like to talk about boxing. And we've both been guests on Porky's Corner, where we've sorted Russ out a few times. So how's life over in Scotland, Andy?
It's not bad, thanks, Bob. The weather's actually brightened up here. It's sunshine today and clear skies, and it's not quite freezing tonight, so it's fairly comfortable at the moment.
Excellent. Well, it's bright. It's bright and sunny here, and during the day it's above zero. It's below zero at night, but we're getting a thaw happening, so we'll soon be into spring runoff. Fingers crossed.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's I might have broken the back of another winter.
there's brighter days ahead, eh?
Indeed, indeed. So I thought we could start off talking about Eubank Jr. and Connor Benn. What what did you think of that excellent press conferences or pressers that they had?
There's been a there's been a number of them, hasn't there? The first one was probably the exciting one when Eubank Jr. decided to egg him, which was obviously in connection with the failed drug test, which I don't know if it was him or the WBC. I think the WBC gave him the option of the excuse that he'd eaten too many eggs, which was a bit absurd because, as far as I'm aware, I'm not an expert in this subject, but as far as I'm aware, eggs in this country, there's very little chance of them being full of clomiphene, which is, I believe, it's used as a masking agent to hide other things in your system, they might say. But I think that was reference to that. So there's been a lot of egg jokes going,
You're
and he literally did end up with egg all over his face, didn't he?
you're yoking, aren't you? Yes. Well, I mean, I thought. I mean, my whole thing about this is that it's a kind of a gimmick fight, but I very much enjoyed Eubank shutting down Eddie Hearn. I thought that was the highlight for me of everything. I find Eddie Hearn to be quite annoying, and clearly he's not used to people telling him to shut up. But I thought that Eubank, who I don't have time for either of these fighters, to be honest. I'm not a fan of either, but I did think that Chris Eubank sort of really put him in his place. What did you think of that?
Oh, definitely. I think Chris Eubank's actually going to gain a lot more fans off of the back of this because, like you say, Eddie Hearn's not the most popular character, and he's certainly met his match. I mean, Eddie Hearn can talk for England, and he certainly met his match when it comes to Eubank Jr. He's just cancelled them out every chance he's had on both press conferences, I thought.
Yeah, I also like the fact that on the second press conference he caught Eddie Hearn I won't say a lie, but in the first press conference Eddie Hearn said that he'd negotiated a 60-40 split and that his guy Conor Benn was going to get 60% and Eubank Jr. was going to get 40%. Well, in the second press conference, Eubank explained what had happened. Apparently, Turkey Al Sheikh negotiates with each fighter, so there's none of this split business. So it made Eddie look like he'd been lying to the public, and I thought it was very well done. It was quite clever. I found myself. I watched the whole press conference because I wanted to do a synopsis for my channel. It was like an hour of time I'll never get back. I could feel my brain turning to mush. But periodically I was like, oh, that's a good one. I like that bit.
Yeah,
But but Christ, I could feel my brain cells dying just watching these multi-millionaire children. I mean, children by my age, right? These multi-millionaire children who I don't buy the real beef. Do you think there's a real beef, or do you think this is all bullshit?
I think it's a huge element of bullshit about it, or fake beef or corned beef or luncheon meat,
Yeah.
tinned luncheon meat. It's I don't ever remember there being that sort of conflict before the fight was talked about the first time. Initially, I never thought this fight would ever happen because of the weight disparity between them. And then, was it 2 years ago, I think, when it was meant to happen, or 2 or 3 years ago? And then they were trying to boil Eubank down to 157, which was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I think that had an impact on his next performance against Liam Smith initially. I think he should really be fighting at 168, which he's fought at before, and he's fought that weight years ago, probably 10 years ago. I mean, now he's 35. I think he's actually 3 years older than his dad was when his dad retired. So
yeah,
but his career's actually, I quite liked him initially, but for me, his career stagnated in its periods of inactivity, whether it's through disputes with promoters, because I don't think either him or his father are keen on promoters, but I think his old man's probably got a lot of experience. He's maybe felt he's been used by promoters, and he didn't want his son to go through the same. And in some respects, that's probably harmed his career through stagnation and just inactivity. Because I think inactivity is probably one of the boxer's biggest enemies, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm never in favor when I see a boxer that's missing months or in some cases years. I'm always thinking you're never going to get better. There's some things that time improves. Wine and cheese come to mind, but time out of the ring that doesn't help a boxer's performance. I can't think of an instance where it has helped. Getting back to this business of boiling a fighter down and rehydration clauses, I'm always concerned that that's going to have a negative effect on a boxer's health. It seems that Turki Al Sheikh is sort of, he picks fighters because he likes them and wants to match them up. But we have weight classes for a reason, and I don't think it's healthy to be trying to have these catch weight bouts. Eubank could be 160. He should be fighting at 168. Arguably, he could be a small light heavy. Whereas, Conor Benn is what, a welterweight, really? I suppose you could. Yeah, I mean, you could be a middleweight, but there is a weight, at least a one weight class disparity between the two. And I know historically it's been done. I mean, Sugar Ray Robinson once fought Gene Tunney for the light heavyweight championship. But just because somebody has done it, I don't think it's necessarily a good idea. I mean, weight classes are there because it's, for basically fighter safety, right?
Yeah. When you talk about Sugar Ray Robinson, you're talking about the very pinnacle of elite boxers.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays we're talking about Crawford fighting Canelo. And if some people make an issue with that, I don't have a big issue with that because Canelo started at lightweights himself.
Yes.
So there isn't a big size disparity between them because I think Crawford's actually taller than Canelo. So I don't think that's as big an issue as maybe Canelo taking on, say, Beterbiev or something like that. I think that would be a bad move. Well, Bivol beat Canelo, didn't he? So that was maybe just a step too far. There's maybe some light heavyweights Canelo could beat, but he's not going to beat the very elite ones.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
I remember Archie Moore, he even fought a heavyweight and light heavyweight, didn't he?
Absolutely. As did Ezra Charles.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, we're talking of the absolute pinnacle of the profession. I mean, I don't think that we should be using Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn's names in the same sentence as Sugar Ray Robinson and Ezra Charles and Archie Moore.
Definitely not. But I mean, I think Chris Eubank Jr. is a level above Conor Benn.
I think
Conor Benn hasn't fought anybody. And since he failed that drug test, the two fights he did have, he looked like he had no power. The shots were just bouncing off relatively low level opposition that he took on in America.
Yeah, he looked he went from being, really sort of um, having a lot of snap in his punches and being able to do a lot of damage with his punches to being almost sort of pillow fisted. His last
Yeah.
outing, I thought he really was noticeably a lesser fighter. Now, I mean, what was they used to say? An egg a day or something, or have an egg a day. Well, clearly, the amount of eggs he was eating was beneficial for him, if we believe that to be the case, right?
Was it go to work on an egg? They used to say, wasn't
That's the ad. Yeah, go to work on an egg. I couldn't remember. It's been so long since I lived in Britain that
it?
there's a lot of things now I forget, and periodically they'll come back to me. But
I think that.
yeah, no, that was I also saw something that Eubank had done, which I thought was good. He said, and he was talking to Eddie. He said that when the fight was cancelled last time, all these guys on the undercard, they'd invested money, they'd gone through training camps, they'd incurred expenses. And what he said is he was going to give 50,000 pounds, I guess, of his purse to those fighters. And so Eddie Hearn was saying, "Oh well, yes, I'll give you the details." And Eubank was essentially like, "No, get
Ah,
lost. I will look after this. I'm not giving you anything." And
yeah.
it was good. It put again Hearn on the back foot. I mean, and every time I see a promoter having it put to them, a part of me is really happy.
Yeah, it makes you smile. I think it was a masterstroke from Eubank that because I remember Ross and Porky's Corner talking about that a while back about all the people that have booked hotels and booked transport and all the arrangements they've made. The fight ticket, they might have got the money back on that, I think, but you're not getting the expenses back for everything else. And if you're going to London or wherever, it ain't cheap.
Yeah.
You ain't going there for you're not getting a £20 travel lodge there by any means, I wouldn't imagine.
I can't imagine how much an even sort of average hotel near like Paddington Railroad Station, Norfolk Square. I can't imagine how much one of those would be a night now. The last time I was in London was probably 2008 when I was working. I wasn't spending my own dime. But
Yeah.
I thought it was expensive then. It must be astronomically nose-bleeding
Oh yeah.
expensive now.
I mean, at a guesstimate, I would imagine if I was to leave here in the middle of Scotland and travel to London to watch a fight and get by the time I get a hotel, rail travel, or if I chose to drive or whatever, I'm sure I wouldn't be much. I'd be at least £1,000, I would imagine, for like it wouldn't just be myself, probably be a couple of people going,
Wow.
So I would have been £1,000 out of pocket if I'd chosen to go to that fight, but I wouldn't travel that distance to watch that fight.
Well, no.
Uh,
On that subject, I don't know if you've seen the ticket prices for a ringside seat. I believe that they were well over £2,000. It worked out to be 4,000 Canadian dollars. And for the M row, so several rows back, it was nearly £900. And I understand that those prices include VAT. I wasn't
yeah,
sure when I made my video about it, and one of my subscribers told me that it included the value added tax or the sales tax. But regardless, I mean, $4,000 in my money for a ringside seat, or over $1,500 in my money for a seat where you probably can't see that much for a
yeah.
non-title fight for these guys. I mean,
It's crazy, crazy money. It's just a big extortion exercise, I think, really, fans. But the fans are paying it. That's the problem.
but
People should, if people choose to, if people didn't buy them tickets for that money, they'd have to bring the price down, wouldn't they?
but who can afford to go? I mean, like I no longer work, so of course I'm a pensioner, right? But even when I was working, I could not have afforded to pay that kind of outlay to go to a sporting event. I mean,
No.
$4,000 for me. is enough for me to go down to California to see the grandkids. You know, it's like
Yeah.
I can't see the value unless you're absolutely loaded with money. Surely there's no value to be gotten from a £2,000 ringside seat.
I mean, I live over here, and from my perspective, that's out of the reach of the working man. What you've got in the UK at the moment, and many people I'm sure who are watching will probably agree, the disparity between rich and poor is wider than a lot of people. People I know that's your age, Bob, and older, say they've never seen, probably since the Second World War, the end of the Second World War, the disparity between rich and poor is as bad as it's ever been. And there's more and more people with more money, and there's more people with less money. So the divide is getting wider. And
Right.
I'll give you a good example. There's somebody I know, a friend of mine, his daughter works in a Land Rover franchise dealership. Um, she's a trainee salesperson. She's working with a salesman who's showing her the ropes and that. And there's a guy come into the showroom, and the sales manager said to her, "Make sure you look after that fellow there. He'll buy a car. He always buys a car. This guy. I think he had his own business, but he might have been a farmer or something like that. So he came in. He was coming in to buy a car for his wife, a Range Rover Evoque. There was one in the showroom that he chose to buy for his wife. Not only did he buy that, but he bought himself a car, and he bought the guy that worked for him a car as well. So he bought three
Wow.
cars. Probably, I'm guessing the Evoque was somewhere in the region of £50,000. And for example, say the other two, I think the other two cars were second hand, so they could have been 40,000 each. So what you got there, 80, there's 130,000. They asked him about if he wants to, what finance he wanted. He took his debit card out and just paid for it with his debit card, all three cars.
Wow.
And that's just one story. I know other people that work in prestige dealerships, and it's a similar thing. They can't get enough cars for these people that are buying them. So it's unbelievable. I mean, I'm in no position to buy
Yeah,
anything
well,
like
I
that.
mean, I drive a 2011 F-150 that's got 250,000 kilometers on it, and it's going to have to keep going until it dies. But I know
Yeah,
what you mean. I've been in Canada a long time, and I see the same sort of thing happening here, where you get, ever increasing amounts of very rich people, but then you have, a bigger
yeah,
amount of I won't say poor people, but people who don't have any excess or disposable income. And
yeah,
I don't think it's healthy. I mean, I'm not sort of, big into politics, but I just don't think it's healthy when you have this disparity, because
yeah,
it can't be good for society generally. But when I saw those ticket prices, I just thought, well, who would? Because like, I don't really know what people in the UK make anymore. I mean, I read the paper and I see that people sort of seem to be, the economy's not doing so great, same as in Canada. And I'm thinking, well, have I got this wrong? Like, I can't imagine a mum and dad taking their two kids to a fight when those kind of prices are
yeah.
going on.
I think the average wage in the UK is somewhere in the region of £35,000 per year. So I
Wow,
mean, if you were to go paying £2,000 for a boxing ticket, that's a big chunk of your. It's
absolutely,
probably nearly a
absolutely.
month's wage.
Well,
So
I stopped going to NHL matches, NHL games, when I was living in Vancouver. I'd honestly rather go and see some juniors play their guts out and pay my $25 or $50 rather than trying to pay $500 to see a bunch of millionaires skating around. I mean,
yeah,
these people have already got a lot of money, right?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. You're just feeding their wealth. But I haven't been to a live boxing match for a number of years now, but I do intend going to some soon. But I'll probably try and go through to Glasgow or something like that. One of
Well,
my pals, we used to go through to Braehead Arena in Glasgow. I think we saw Ricky Burns fight there a couple of times, and Scott Harrison. Do you remember him?
oh yeah, 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 yeah.
He was a tough guy,
Well,
but
if
he
one
ended
of
up having
us
alcohol problems.
if one of us should win the lottery, we should get the guys who are on the Porky's Corner Commission. We should all head out to Riyadh and
Head out to Riyadh.
have the Porky's Corner.
Wait, we'll wind up in jail for telling the truth.
they may as well arrest us before we arrive there, just as a preventative kind of thing. Yeah.
Calling out the bullshit.
Talking about very rich people, I'm somewhat surprised to see that the Ring magazine, which of course is owned by Turki Al Sheikh, has got Tyson Fury rated as the #1. They've got Alexander Usyk being the champion, Tyson Fury #1, Daniel Dubois #2. But I mean, have I missed something here? Did Tyson Fury not retire? Because if we're putting retired fighters in, can I vote to have Lennox Lewis in there, please?
I was just going to say, where's George Foreman?
Yeah, George Foreman's still alive. Larry Holmes is still alive. Evander Holyfield's still alive. Iron Mike, Lennox Lewis.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty good top 5, right?
It is, huh?
But why is Fury in there?
I don't understand that at all. Does the Ring magazine know something we don't? Is there not meant to be some announcement? Or I don't know. It's just a load of.
Well, I mean, if he's retired, and he said he's retired, and his manager Spencer Brown said he's retired, and his promoter Frank Warren said he's retired, it doesn't seem reasonable that the Ring magazine would make a typo. Like, I mean. No. I can misspeak on my channel, but I don't have any editors or anybody like that, right? Like, I mean, you'd think that the Ring magazine wouldn't make this mistake unless possibly we're going to see Tyson come back in to fight the #5 rated contender, none other than Mr. Anthony Joshua.
Do you think it's a ploy to try and entice him out of retirement, having him still there? And I don't know, but
yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but possibly.
Yeah, it could be. It's difficult to know, isn't it? Well, he's not going to leave money on the table like that, is he? They're all about money, these people. So I don't believe he'll leave money on the table, but I still don't think he's #1. I mean, you've got to put Dubois above him. You've probably got to put Parker above him, and
Caballel.
There's a case to be made for Caballel. I mean, he's lost his last 2 fights, obviously to the best, but you can't just still be #2. And what's he just going to keep fighting him forever?
So he lost against Usyk. He lost against Usyk. He went life and death with Ngannou, and before that he beat Chisora. I mean,
Ngannou on his pro debut.
Yeah, I mean, arguably he shouldn't get a rating any higher than
6, maybe a 5.
5 or 6, really.
5, maybe 5. We'll be generous.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were a bit generous with Joshua, actually, because Joshua has lost to Dubois. He beat Ngannou, and he beat the Swedish fellow, pillow-fisted Otto Wallin, and he beat Robert Hellenius. But that's not exactly like cleaning out the division.
No.
I mean, were it me, I would have rated it, of course, Usyk, and then Dubois, then Parker or Caballel. I don't care which, actually, but Parker, Caballel, and then there's others that you could slot in there. But I hadn't thought of it as being an ego stroke for Fury. Maybe you're right. Maybe if we all collectively pretend that Fury is #1, he might then come out to sort of impress us with his magnificence.
If they want him to come back, I thought a better ploy would be just to forget about him and just let him come with a begging bowl. He's asking. I believe he was asking for crazy money. Just say, "No, you're retired, mate. See ya. Too late."
That's what should have happened. That's what should have happened. They should have said, "Okay, thank you. You've retired. Wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. You were fabulous. Bye-bye."
You know what else puzzled me? You remember? I don't know much about video games anymore because my son would. He plays a lot of video games. But when there was a big launch of this undisputed video game.
Yeah.
Why is Tyson Fury on the front of the cover? I thought that's disrespectful to Usyk. I think that was before they had their undisputed fight.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
wasn't before or after, but that was making an assumption that Tyson Fury is going to win. Wrong.
Yes, well, I think that everybody in the establishment wanted him to win, including the referee who stopped him from being iced in the ninth round of the first fight. Um, which I've watched that round so many times that it makes me so happy to watch that round. Um, I think
There's
that
one.
Usyk was too much of a gentleman, too much of a sportsman there. Can you
Yeah.
imagine Sonny Liston or George Foreman or Marciano? You would never be, the
No.
ref could never have pulled them off. They would have definitely got that last one in, right?
That's my friend Frank. He had after the fight. He had quite a good analogy about it. He said Usyk's beaten him twice in the first fight because he's not only has he knocked him out in the ninth, he beat him on points as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I can just see all the Fury fans now unsubscribing from our channels, but you got to call it the way it is, right? Like to anybody watching this, we're just two guys who are fans, right? Like
That's it. That's why I said on a video I made last night in the early hours, the witching hour, about it was good to see Chris Eubank's original trainer there, Ronnie Davis. I couldn't remember his surname last night. I'm like, I ended up having to Google it before I finished the video because I was kicking myself. Normally when I can't, it's usually late at night, if something escapes me. It normally comes back in maybe 10 seconds, but last night it wasn't coming back last night. But Ronnie Davis, he was a proper old school straight talker, an
yeah.
proper old school boxing character.
Well, at these press conferences, you had Tony Sims and Nigel Benn as well, and it was good to hear like real boxing people talking.
Yeah.
And genuine sort of tough guys who'd come up in a very hard way. Very different to the kids, right?
Yeah.
Nothing against people who've been to private school. I mean, good for you, but it's not quite the same, really.
No, they've not come up the hard way, have they?
No,
So
absolutely not.
I think Eubank and his brothers not get sent to America?
Think so, yeah.
Well,
And Conor Benn went to Spain, I think. Did he go
yeah,
not
but
spend time growing up in Spain?
I don't know if that was with his parents or not though, but I think Eubank and his brothers got, I think when they were 16, 17,
Yeah.
or they got sent to America. They're not causing a bit of bother. They were boxing out there. I think Eubank's old man did the same thing. I think he started his career in America.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
his old man was a lot of folk don't like him. I always liked. Just thought he was a good character in boxing, but he was a tough guy. He was
Oh,
he
absolutely. I mean,
didn't have many elite wins, but I don't think, but he was a tough guy.
yeah, he was an eccentric fellow, but a tough man for sure. Absolutely. Talking about tough people, I see that the WBC is calling for now Bivol to actually fight Benavidez next, which kind of puts a little bit of a stick in the spokes of Turki Al Sheikh, who was talking about having the trilogy fight. What do you think about that, man?
Well, this is the same WBC that was saying that Conor Benn deserves a world title shot. On the back of what?
Yeah.
On the back of what? It's like, and it's the same WBC that kind of spoon-fed Wilder for a number of years, and then they only had Fury making one mandatory defense, which was against Dillian.
Dillian
Like
White. Yes. Yeah. No. Again, a prestigious belt that is now doesn't seem to have that prestige attached to it. I was thinking that this would be I don't normally like rematches, but I would like to see Beterbiev Bivol or Bivol Beterbiev one more time because the two fights, they were both close. I think the right man won in each fight, but I could have, if it had gone the other way around, I wouldn't be fighting with anybody. But having a trilogy match would sort of draw a line under that. And if Bivol has to fight Benavidez next, then it sort of, will potentially age out Beterbiev. And if
Yeah.
Bivol just surrenders the WBC belt, well, then it's no longer for undisputed. So I thought that was kind of unfortunate.
Yeah. Beterbiev, I think he's about 10 years older than Bivol, isn't he? So
Um,
he's not got time on his side, we could say.
Beterbiev is 40.
Maybe Bivol's 31, is he?
Yeah,
Perhaps 30
I
or
see.
31.
I see. We're running out of time. Out of time. We'll have
Are
to
we?
cut this one off, and we'll continue
Already?
chatting. Phone me back on WhatsApp. Okay,
Oh, we've
everybody.
got we've got 9 minutes yet.
Oh,
Bob.
we do. Okay, I just had a warning come
Yeah.
up on my screen to say we were running out
All
of
right.
time. But if we've still
Says,
got,
yeah,
okay, if we've still
remaining
got time,
time.
that's great. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
You've got 40 minutes overall,
Oh,
I think
okay.
it
I
was.
wasn't sure how long we got. It had a warning inviting me to upgrade, and
All
I
right.
wasn't sure if it was a cutoff at 30 minutes. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I think Beterbiev is 40, Bivol's 34, and I don't know what you think on this, but my sense was that Beterbiev was slightly on the decline in his last fight, which Father Time has never been beaten, right?
I think, I think Father's Time is undefeated. I think he's not going to get any better. I thought it was a better fight, the rematch.
Yeah.
I thought it was, it was more action packed. I felt Beterbiev really put it on him. It was almost like the first round was the 13th round, you could say, of the first fight. But it was a better fight, I thought. The first fight was very technical and they seemed to be cancelling each other out in many ways. But certainly the second fight, it caught fire, I would say, more than the first one. But I don't see Beterbiev getting any better. And he is probably one of the elite. If you ever watch his training videos,
Oh, they're wild, aren't they?
Unbelievable. He must really live the life to. A lot of people should take a leaf out of his book, in this country anyway, when it comes to discipline and training methods, I would say.
There's something about those Eastern European athletes who they were trained by the former Soviet Union coaches. They bring a certain degree of discipline that it isn't often you see in North American or British fighters. Like I'm thinking, like Usyk, for example. I mean, Usyk rocked up to watch the last Crescendo card, and Usyk looked to be pretty much still in fight shape, whereas your neighbour there, Martin Bacoli, the great King of Scotland. I'm not sure what he eats in his off-peak time. He looked like he'd eaten Billy Nelson.
It's unfortunate. He really needs to. I like Martin McCauley. I'm a big Martin McCauley fan. And I also like Billy Nelson.
Guy.
He's a straight talker, but he does really need to get his weight in check, I think, because if he'd kept his weight in check and kept probably a better base level of fitness, he might not have come as unstuck as he did there, which was unfortunate. I felt a bit deflated after that fight because I had high hopes, but my high hopes were I probably got carried away on emotion, thinking, wow, he's getting a big chance here that he's been craving. But it turns out he's not sparred since August, and he'd been training, but it's only doing bag work and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I think he got lured by money, and they've bought a win over him, haven't they? Really, in some respect. I don't know how much money he got. I've heard conflicting figures from 3 million to 600. Excuse me, 600,000.
Yeah.
So
I put up a post quoting TalkSport numbers originally, and then a lot of people said that was all wrong, that the numbers were much, much, much higher. But then Dan Raphael, he's recently put up the purses, and they are very close to the original Sport Talk numbers. And it's something like 650,000 for Piccoli, which is clearly a great deal of money. I'm not sort of poo-pooing it, and I understand why he took it. But it may actually come back to bite him because he's given up his final eliminator spot now with a Jagba. So
did you hear Derek? Did you hear Derek Chisora basically slagging off eliminators and stuff like that?
Yes. He said he didn't really care about them. They meant nothing. Yeah.
But I dare say with eliminators, the sanctioning bodies will be making money out of them. sanctioning fees, won't it? So
yes, exactly.
another scam.
You know, with Bacoli, the lesson here for all athletes is stay close to shape, because you know you look at the young fellow who fought against Shakur Stevenson, Josh Padley. He kept himself in close to fight shape, and he was able to take advantage of that life-changing opportunity. And actually, he did a good job. I was very pleased to see what he did. And if Bacoli had sort of been, I don't know, Bacoli's fighting weight is, let's say for argument's sake, 280. If he'd come in there at 290 and in pretty decent shape, he might well have gotten some rounds out of Parker, and you never know. It's heavyweight boxing. One hit can make a difference, right? But
even in that 2 rounds, he did land a few decent shots on Parker.
He came really, really close to connecting right on the button. I'm not sure if heavyweight boxers are doing the right thing by trying to come in bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, does a man need to be more than 225, 230, 235? I mean, you know, you're 14, 15. Does a 16-stone man not have enough power to drop any human being on the planet? I would have thought so. Does a 20-stone man hit that much harder? I'm not sure. You know,
do you remember David Hay when he took on Nikolai Valuev?
Absolutely.
And he rocked him to his boots in the last round.
And look at Alexander Usyk.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's 230 maybe. I don't remember his exact weight. He gave up 50 pounds or more against Fury, and he certainly didn't seem to have any difficulties.
I'll tell you 2 fights that stick in my head where the commentators were saying the people in the fight. One of them was Lennox Lewis when he took on Vitaly Klitschko, and Lennox Lewis came in about 18 stone. And everybody's like, "Whoa, that's way too heavy." Heavy. And I think Riddick, Big Daddy Bo, came in about a similar weight against his first fight with Andrew Golota, which was a fantastic. The two Bo Golota fights were an absolute war, but Golota threw it away, didn't they? With low blows, but
aiming for the box.
They were deemed way too heavy. Yet now it's commonplace. The guys coming in 18, 19, 20 stone, and it's like they need to knock it on the head and get some discipline.
Yeah, I mean, like Lennox at 250 is a very, very big man. You know, you think about Muhammad Ali, or you go back even further, Joe Louis. I mean, they were what we would now call bridgerweights. But you know, 6'3", 225, 6'3", 6'4", 240. Those weights seem to be really sort of, you know, spot on for me. When I see somebody who's really anything above 260, I'm thinking that there's a lot of eating going along there, and in the long haul in the championship rounds, I'm wondering about those legs.
Oh yeah, and Mike Tyson was around about 215, 220, wasn't he?
That's right.
When he was in his prime,
And Iron Mike had no problem in putting people down.
No, I mean Rocky Marciano, he would now be a small cruiserweight, wouldn't he?
Rocky Marciano often weighed 185. I think he was 187.5 against Jersey Joe Walcott. And anybody who's seen that fight, no matter who Rocky had hit with that Susie Q, I don't care if they were 20 stone or not, that Susie Q was going to put them down.
Shake them in their boots, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
He was somebody else that had a fantastic training regime, Marciano. He was very disciplined, wasn't he?
Oh, absolutely ferocious training regime. The kind of things that these old-time fighters would put themselves through. Again, discipline, right? Discipline.
Oh, yeah. Discipline's key. That's it. I think we're under a minute now, Bob.
Yeah. So who do you think Parker should fight next? And or more to the point, why doesn't Parker seem to be getting any love and any world title shots?
I'd like to see him against Dubois. That fight should still happen, I think, personally.
Yeah,
it's going to cut off, I think.
I would agree with that. Okay, well, let's wrap this one up. It's been great having you as a guest. Hopefully, the technology has worked and we'll be able to upload this. Really appreciate
Been
your
an honour.
time. And to anybody that's watching, please visit Andy's Cavern over in Scotland. So, thanks very much, my friend.
Thanks, Bob.
Cheers.
Take care.
Bye bye now.
Cheers. All the best.